would like to begin our Ordinance Committee meeting tonight, January 8th, 2025. Happy New Year to everyone. In council chambers, present with us to make up the committee is myself, Councilor Israel Rivera, Councilor Linda Vacan, and Councilor Jenny Rivera. I'll entertain a motion to take up item 1.
Motion to take up item 1.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Item 1 was filed. Item 1 is the minutes of December 11th, 2024 meeting. Has everyone taken a chance to kind of go through them? And I'll entertain a motion to approve them once everyone is ready to do so.
I'm just refreshing my brain a little bit here.
I'd like to recognize Councilor Meg McGrath-Smith too as well. Thank you for joining us. It is cold.
Oh, here's Mr. Bartley.
Very good. All right.
Well, actually, no. You could. This one here actually already. You don't even need that.
This is the one? Okay, you got it.
This is extra. So we're in the process of approving the minutes. Just
we opened them.
allowing.
Sorry.
Yes. And welcome Councilor Bartley too as well.
Sorry about that.
No worries. I figured everyone would stroll in. So just
I'll
giving
make a motion to accept the minutes, if everybody's had a chance to look at them.
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. So with that, the minutes on December 11th, 2024, they are approved.
Motion to take up item 2.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item 2, anyone opposed? No. Item 2 is filed by Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti. Order that the city create the position of municipal hearings officer to hear appeals by offenders of the state building code made pursuant to MGLC 148A, Section 2, and that a stipend be determined for said position. We've had this item come to us a couple times. I know the last time Councilor Vacan had some questions, and I think Councilor Bartley as well. Some of us had some questions. And we were hoping to get a response back with regards to those questions. But what I do have is a letter from the solicitor's office.
Take 2A off the table, please.
Which is 2A thing, yeah. I didn't even see it there. Yes, do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So what the letter reads, and this is from, I believe, Jane, our city solicitor assistant. What do you have there? Oh, you got another one? Yes. This one right here. So it reads to the councilors, to us, the council, additional information has been requested as to what municipal hearings officer position would entail. Please let this letter provide such information. Pursuant to MGLC 148A, a municipal hearings officer can hear appeals related to the state building code and state fire code. We were informed that the city did not have a municipal hearings officer despite an appeal process being outlined in MGLC 148A. In addition, we have subsequently been informed that the city actually adopted MGLC 40U back in 2010, but for some reason, the adoption of said statute did not make it into Municode. We are working with the city clerk to ensure that the same is updated with the provisions of MGLC 40U. Section 6 of MGLC 40U requires the appointment of a municipal hearings officer. The municipal hearings officer should be a third-party contractor and not an employee of the City of Holyoke department issuing the violation fine. In addition, as the law department would be the one enforcing the fine if litigation were necessary, an employee from the law department should also not be the municipal hearings officer. In addition, a stipend would be necessary to pay such contractor. The municipal hearings officer must also attend a state-mandated training. If there's any questions, please feel free to contact. And with us, we have City Solicitor Jane Mantaleski for any questions or to expand on this. If there's anything you'd like to add to this, Jane, too, feel free, because it kind of feels cookie cutter for me just reading from the paper.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to answer any additional questions. I did have the opportunity to speak with Building Commissioner Ward, who also submitted a letter regarding a municipal hearings officer. I believe you also have a draft ordinance from Attorney Tashina Davis in our office. And she, I thought that draft was pretty comprehensive. So I'm happy to answer any questions. But again, we're still working with having Unicode updated to include that Mass General Law 40U, which is essentially a statute regarding enforcement of unpaid municipal fines. And they do require that any municipality that adopts that section do have a municipal hearings officer. So obviously we all saw when it came to the building code enforcement with respect to certificates of inspection, that was a hard process. And this position would also go a long way with that with respect to hearing of appeals. It would also hear various type of building appeals as well as potential Board of Health appeals as well. So that's all I have to say. Again, here for any additional questions from any of the counselors. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Bacon, and then Councilor McGrath.
Thank you. So at the last meeting, my question was, how many building code fine hearings had the law department been involved in over the last 3 years, or at least 1 to 3 years, to get a sense of it? If this has been on the book since 2010, I'd like to see the documentation of that vote. I mean, it's 2025. So if you could let us know how many hearings the law department has actually been involved in, that would be helpful in terms of looking at volume.
Well, I will say that we have not, Councilor Bacon, because we have not had a municipal hearings officer. There have been some appeals to the district court that I knew.
That's what my question is.
I would say probably within the last 3 years, Attorney Degnan was handling it. I would say probably on average, she probably deals with 10 a year. So not a heavy lift, which would make it easy and it probably wouldn't cost that much for the municipal hearings officer. As the building code states, the appeal can also go to the state. So because we haven't had a municipal hearings officer, I'm not sure how many have actually went to the state. But regardless, regardless of how many we're having, the statute requires it. So requires an appointment of a municipal hearings officer. So regardless of how many and what the volume is, we need it.
So my comment on this will be that if we have adopted this statute, I need to see the documentation of when we adopted it.
Sorry, Councilor Bacon, I actually do have that, and I got it from Clerk Leary. And so it was adopted on May 4th, 2010, and I will forward this email to the committee right now. But it was adopted, it was an order from Councilor Devine back in 2010 that we accept the provisions of Chapter 40U of the MGL enacted on February the 10th as Chapter 26 of the Acts of 2010, an act relative to unpaid municipal fines. Have considered the same and recommended that it be adopted. This was the Committee on Ordinance back in 2010. Committee members, Lopez, O'Neill, Keene, Purrington, and Lisi. And the report of the committee was received and adopted on a call of the roll call yeas and nays. Yeas 15, nays 0, absent 0. So I will forward that to the committee right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. McGrath Smith?
I'm interested in understanding more what the process would be for a neutral party to be hired, or what it looks like to hire a contractor into this role. Because initially when we heard about it, I was imagining, and the conversation seemed like we were imagining more that it would not be a neutral party, that it would actually be someone from within the city government that would be getting a stipend to do this work on top of their regular duties. So I'd love to get a sense of what does the process look like? I did look online and I was looking at different examples. I found one from the regional council from Franklin County, and and it looked like they had an annual stipend of $2,500 and a flat rate of $150 per hearing. Does that sound like that's sort of in line with what we're imagining financially? And, you know, if we are moving forward with this, then would we have to create that job description with the HR director and set a rate per a flat rate per hearing? These are just some of my questions.
I think those are completely valid questions, and I do know, if you take a look at Commissioner Ward's letter of November 15th that I believe you have in your packet, the fire department also has
Yes,
a municipal hearings officer within their own department, who's a retired chief, John Pond, and he's doing their appeals. So it would be very, very similar to what he is doing in that role. So I wouldn't see why he could not also be there. There's nothing against having him be the person as well. So I think as long as we have someone already ready to do it, which I believe he is, all we would really have to do is either approve a rate, if the council wanted to go that route, approve a general lump sum stipend, council could go that route, but it would be something that we would be putting into ordinance, so that person would be an ordinance employee.
I'll make a motion, since you brought up this, to take 2B off the table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then 2B, I'll read it in just so that everyone has some context as to what Solicitor Manteleschi is referring to. This was written this is a letter from our building commissioner, Leslie Ward. Dear councilors, I would like to strongly urge you to approve the appointment of a municipal hearings officer for multiple reasons. In addition to the obligation already in place set forth by the adoption of MGL Chapter 40U Section 6, the city has historically had a contracted individual fulfill this role. This is not a new position. Without this procedure in place, the city is obliged to have all of building code fine hearings held in Springfield Housing Court and building code decisions appeal heard by BBRS in Boston. Do we know what BBRS stands for? Jane.
Sorry, yes, I was on mute for a second. Still getting that, almost 5 years later.
I don't like acronyms.
So it is. It's the Board of Building
Regulations.
something.
Okay.
But I do have it.
Okay.
But it is the Appeals
Board of Building
Board of the
Regulations.
State.
Okay, in Boston.
Oh, thank you, Councilor McGrath.
Yeah, all right, thank you. This is difficult for all involved. A hearing with the state can be an intimidating process. It discourages some individuals from appealing decisions as a result. That is true. Hearings held in Springfield Housing Court are a drain on tax dollars in the form of employee hours and travel expenses for a relatively small amount. We could have a contracted individual hear our final appeal on site, saving the city money. Additionally, without a municipal hearings officer, the city is unable to take advantage of the municipal non-criminal building code violation program pursuant to MGLC 148A 780 CMR. This is non-criminal violation program would allow the building department the ability to fund our own training through fine proceeds, as the fire department is currently able to do so. The fire department currently has retired Chief Pond perform this service for the appeals hearing. I am simply requesting that we allow the building department the same flexibility as it has had in the past. Most glaring evidence for the need is a certificate of inspection program currently underway in our city. We must allow our citizens convenient and fair recourse to appeal their fines for they so choose in the future. So I think on my end, right, what I hear that's a little different than the last few meetings is that we have a third party versus the original order that says that we just like we hire someone that works for the city. So I'm not against that. It makes total sense to have a third party come in and be contracted. So that way, somewhat of it being a neutral party. But I think that for me is new. That right there is new, like newer information, unless I was misunderstanding what was being asked before when it was filed before. To me, in the beginning, it was someone that was going to work for us as someone that would be working as an employee, either of the building department or the law department or wherever, the public health department. But now it sounds like it's a third-party contractor. I'm not against that, makes sense. It's at the will of the body to figure out where else. And then the new thing to me too is that it's also like it's ordinance. Like we're supposed to have that. That goes back to the traffic squad for me. So it's like there are certain things where how can we rectify the situation and make it so that we don't hire a person. It's not going to be on our, like, we're hiring them because we're giving them the stipend, but they're not going to be on our payroll for the most part. It's a contracted position. But I'm at the will of the body as to what you guys want to do. Go ahead, Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. What I would like to see is the language of the law, because I want to see what requirements around payment there are in the law.
That makes sense.
If we're going to reinstate it, I'd rather do it in one annual stipend than something that's flexible and bouncing around. Otherwise, there's very little predictability. So I don't know how it's working in the fire department, if John Pond is getting an annual stipend or how that's working, but I'd like to see the law and if it has a minimum or something like that.
That makes sense.
Before we ask the law department to put it into ordinance form, because they shouldn't be giving us anything relative to this till we ask for it.
Okay, so
I would just like to have the information.
real quick, because this has been, the only thing for me is right here, right, that I want to say is it's been tabled already 3 times, right? I'm okay with tabling it again with the purpose of for the next time that we're hoping to move it forward to full council.
Well, we keep getting new information.
I don't disagree. I'm not going to disagree on that piece. But like, I think for us is, and this is where I'm for the new year, it's like, let's move a lot of these things forward, and whether they get voted up or down at the full council, that we let it be, we find out what it is there. But I'm in agreement with you in finding out what the language is, if there is any ups or downs with regards to that piece. I see your hand raised.
Maybe Attorney Manteleschi already knows the answer, but I would just like to have the documentation.
No, but go ahead, Attorney Manteleschi.
Sorry, Maya, I was trying to make sure that my kids did not come in the background of my
It's
video.
okay, they can come. Mine used to.
So I just wanted to say that because we are required to have this and we do not have it under statute, I would ask that we move this along and put it back in front of, because we know we need it, so we're going to need to have it. If we could put it back, if the committee could do a recommendation today and then put it back in front of the full council for a vote for its next meeting. With respect to the payment information, that's something we can provide. That should be pretty simple for the full council hearing. And we do have a draft ordinance, and I just wanted to respond briefly to Councilor Bacon's comment that the law department shouldn't be providing it until we're asked. And that's hard, because there are times where we don't do it because we haven't been asked. And then there are times when we get back in front of committee and they're like, well, we need something. We can't do anything because we don't have anything from the law department. So in order to move things along, we've tried to get the items drafted so that we can expedite things more. So I guess more of that comment is for clarity. I don't know. I would like to have a consensus of the committee. I know under the rules what it states. But I would like to have having it be the new year, I would like to have some clarity as to when the committee would like to see a draft versus not. So I guess that's kind of extraneous to this in general, but
I'll take responsibility with regards to the clarity and asking for the draft or whatnot as the chair of the committee. And I guess I see where you're coming from with trying to get ahead of like the mountain of work that could come later or that won't come later, and then you end up doing something. But I think Councilor Bacon has a comment, and Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. Through the chair, we just clarified our rules in City Council relative to this very issue.
Just bringing them up.
And we've had to say it in the politest way, we've had confusion over various legal forms, what was requested, what was done to expedite a process, et cetera, et cetera. And long story short, it's resulted in a lot of confusion. And after the discussions that we had in Charter and Rules, we just very recently, at the end of last year, revised our rules and clarified that very process. So it's really not up to this committee to change the rules of the council once we vetted them and clarified them. And we did it to avoid confusion. But if you could tell us, or if you could share with us on the email, any regulations relative to that law that you're citing around the payment, then we could consider that in committee and we could potentially request a legal form. But it's not going to matter if we recommend the position to the full council if we don't have an ordinance and a stipend to pay the individual. Nothing can be done until we do that.
Thank you. Councilor McGrath-Smith?
I'm also wondering if, similar to the CAFO conversation, we need to have a job description along with the payment information in front of us, along with the ordinance language in order for us to move it to council.
I don't disagree with that either.
So I
Go ahead,
the
Councilor.
chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So in the draft form that we had provided to council back in November, it did include the duties and responsibilities, the qualifications, the position. So this is kind of, what the chicken and the egg,
Yes,
or I
yes.
feel like a cat chasing my tail. I don't really, because we're getting asked these questions, so we put them into a legal form to help the committee out. But so I honestly don't have a recommended answer for the committee because, in theory, right, theory behind just how legislature works in general, is the legislature drafts the items or the legislation, and they go to legal to make sure there is nothing wrong legally with it. But in practical sense, that's hard, right? Because legal has a pretty good knowledge of municipal law and what is required. So there's an attempt to do something in tandem, but it's again and again, I don't have an answer for it. It's just how do we get to a point where there is not this continued infighting over what a person, a counselor, a committee, the council wants, and when it's in draft form versus not. And I just feel like there's been a continued fight over this, and it's just hard because I know that the legal department is trying our best to give the committees and the council what they want, but then hearing, well, we don't want that yet. Well, so it's just very confusing and it's very hard. And I think I'm trying to, the law department in general, would just like to get to a point where we're not continually having to argue about this, and we can just get to a symbiotic relationship and with the council and with getting things done and moving things ahead. So I guess that's just my piece.
No, I appreciate that. And
Still asking for a piece of information.
no, so give me a second, Councilor Vick. So I think for me, it's important for me to make sure that the onus falls on me as the chair, that there is clarity as to what it is that we're requesting, right? That's the first piece that I will say with regards to the confusion and the misunderstandings as to what it is that you're looking for. If there needs to be more communication with me per se and Jeff, and having that as to what we're looking for the upcoming meeting, then I'll own that, and then we'll do that more. So that way you're not running around doing all this extra stuff, and that there is no confusion or miscommunication with regards to what is expected for the meeting. You did mention a draft. I don't have a document for a draft here. And so that, like, when you're mentioning the draft for us here, we don't have anything in front of us to look at, just in general with regards to a draft. I know in the past you guys have said you sent something, but and maybe this is us being too used to having Jeff, right? Normally, Jeff would have whatever it is that you would be referring back to, and we don't have that right now. So that makes it difficult, at least for me, to be able to refer back to some of the things that you're saying. So I would be in agreement with putting it on the next agenda, just so that way we can have all that stuff when we do that. I understand where you're coming from with pushing it forward and making sure that it gets voted on. I'm with that 110%, but I have to agree with saying that there are a couple questions around like pay, and things that can be brought up later on, as you said. I don't disagree, but 2 weeks from now, if we waited 2 weeks, how much of a difference would it be than bringing it up at the next meeting for full council? Like, is it imperative?
Right.
Yeah, if it's imperative to have it right now, then I'm with it, right? But if it's not that imperative, because it's already been 3-4 meetings that we've had already, and I want to get this done already, but it does make sense to have that one more meeting, and that next meeting I'm with it. We're voting it out, just so that way we have the language, we have the rates, potential rates, or whatever ideology that may be caught up. Like, because Meg mentioned something about $2,500, and then for everything there's a cap of like 100 that she saw somewhere else. That kind of makes sense. But I don't know what we're doing, and I don't know what we're dealing with regards to that. So I'd be inclined as well to kind of push it to the next meeting just to figure that out. Councilor Vacan, and then again Jane.
Thank you. So I'm just wondering if in the law, there are certain laws that state a minimum stipend for the role. In this law, is there anything about a requirement about the money in the law itself?
I'm bringing it up right now.
No worries. Go ahead. Take your time.
So while I'm bringing that up, while I'm doing that, my question is this: if and I don't know why the committee doesn't have the draft. I expected you to have it,
Yeah.
so I'll take that beat, and I'll apologize for that. Is it okay that after I get this information, that I, for the next meeting, have a draft for the committee to review, so that the next committee meeting, as long as all the information is provided in the ordinance that the committee would like, that they can have something, that the committee can have something for review
Yes.
at its next meeting?
Yes,
We should make a motion to that. But
but I would
it would help if we need money, right? So we need to know what we're talking about.
So with regards, so I think just having a structure in place, that helps a ton more than not even having that,
True.
right? So I think for us, it's having the structure in place. By the time it gets to the full council, we would already hopefully have an understanding of what the money is and what's happening. If not, then at the full council, people don't have to vote on it. You don't have to necessarily vote on it.
Well, right. I mean, my only point is we can't appoint anybody if we don't also put the stipend into ordinance, or however we're going to address the pay.
That's
So if you don't do both, you can't do any.
Councilor.
That's all. So I'm just wondering, does the law speak to it? Because we've had some instances where they said if a person is doing this,
Right.
they get that.
Right.
And so.
Right, and I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jane.
I just
That's a
checked,
good
and there's
point.
nothing specific in that ordinance, or in that statute,
About pay. Okay, so.
about the pay, yes.
If we could have a history of what we used to pay, I guess that would give us some frame of reference.
I can also get the information as to what Mr. Pond, former Chief Pond, is getting paid from
It might make
the
sense.
fire department.
Yeah, it might make sense to keep it the same with
Yeah.
that. In line with that. Councilor Bartley?
Thank you.
Yeah, let me borrow the mic, Linda.
Oh, sure.
So, yeah, very, very brief. You're going to need to have something from the mayor, an appropriation. You know, what does he have for financing? Where does he envision how this person's going to be paid? It shouldn't just be us doing it
Right.
alone, right? So you need to get a communication from the mayor and just through the chair, Jane. Jane, why don't you work on that? And then come back to us with a communication as well as a draft language, and we'll figure it out.
It does make sense because they have to be in the budget. You're right. So, yeah, so Jane, did you hear that? I mean, matter of fact,
I did.
let's make it a motion now.
Is that a motion, Council Barley?
Oh, yes.
I'll second it.
Okay.
So the motion was, one was to come back with the language, right? Reach out to the mayor, and get a communication from the mayor of an appropriation and pretty much break down it to us as to how, go ahead,
Yeah, may I say one more thing?
go ahead.
Just through the chair, Jane, yeah, I thought I remembered it right. Yeah, 148A, Section 5, puts together a number, shall be no less than $2,500. I was pretty sure I remembered that. So there is a specific remuneration.
Right, I was looking at 40U, so that's where I was. I didn't look at 148A when I just did this now, so that makes total sense, Counselor Bartley.
Okay.
So perfect.
Can I also say?
Go ahead, Councilor McGrath-Smith.
The other thing that's really interesting regionally is that the municipal hearings officer is shared between Amherst, Belchertown, East Hampton, Hadley, and Northampton.
Well, there's a smart idea.
So, like, they have an intergovernmental contract where they together have one municipal hearings officer services contractor.
Could we look into that?
So it's just another thought
Yes.
too. You know, what are our options in terms of actually making this happen? And are we, handling it in-house, or is it maybe financially more prudent to? Can we join this group here? Is there another group that's already doing this that we can also tag into? So it's not.
I think we'd have to create the position first, right? And
Right.
say that we want to have that. And then after that is having the conversation. And I think that might be a Hampshire County type network. And maybe
It's true.
us trying to do the same with Hamden or whomever it is. Whoever, like, it's a great idea to do that too as well. I don't disagree. But we do work with East Hampton on veteran services and other things.
Well.
I think
So-
Hampton
But if we also,
is in our.
the other piece too, though, if we do already have someone that's kind of doing that work in Chief Pond, former Chief Pond, it also, the money's going to go, we're still going to have to pay, right? If we give it to a conglomerate of
Yes,
it,
we'd see how
or we
much.
have to give it to, that is true, it changes.
Right?
So, yeah, I'm back on the motion, right? Which was, you guys distracted me real quick. To come back with the language, and again, communication from the mayor with appropriation, and
Understanding that it's a required 2,500.
Minimum.
under 128,
148A.
148A, Section 5.
You
Yep.
got it.
So my question would just be, because 148A is a section where you can have a municipal hearings officer for building and zoning fines and fees.
Yeah.
Not fees, but fines. But in addition, if there's Board of Health or something else that this hearings officer would want to handle, or would be handling, there may be additional. So I don't know if we should limit it to that amount under 148A. But that is just food for thought, because there may be additional items that they are handling, so.
That's just a
A
minimum.
baseline.
Yeah, so it would be. I mean, I'm hearing here that it's a baseline. For me, I would have set a foundation, just a place to start with, at least, or at least to have the conversation with. But I think the
So maybe like no less than language?
Yeah, and actually, it might be better to have a conversation with the mayor too as well, because he would be the one to say, yeah, we have 2,500 or we have 1,500
Happy to
or
do that.
1,000. You know what I mean? Like whichever one.
Right, and how broad
Yeah.
the role would be. I
There.
mean, because this only talks about state building code, not all of the other broader areas.
So if he can communicate that too with that, that would be great. But yeah, so language, communicate to the mayor about appropriating it and keeping it, well, at least using the $2,500 as a baseline. But I think in the communication, it would make sense for him to kind of elaborate. Like if it's 1,500, yeah, that makes sense. If it's 2,500, I got the space for that or whatever that is. And I got the second from Councilor Bacon. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nobody's online, so I don't need a roll call.
What?
Perfect. Thank you, Councilor.
All right, thank
Solicitor
you.
Mantelewski. Motion to take up item 3.
So, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 3 was filed by Councilor Greeny. Order that DPW install a 15-minute parking sign in front of the Stop and Go variety at the variety store at the corner of Hillside Avenue and Cherry Street. I wasn't present. Councilor Bacon was gracious, ever so gracious, to chair the meeting for that day. Would you like to
Sure. Councilor Greeny indicated last night that he was unable to attend tonight, but that he was anxious to have us move this forward to help this new business owner hopefully have good success at the site. And now we have the measurements, and I explained to him that's all we were waiting for, and they've been timely provided to us. And so I'll make a motion that we, let's see, what do we have to do? Just approve it? Just approve the 15-minute parking sign in front of Stop and Go Variety Store in the corner of Hillside Ave and Cherry Street, according to the measurements provided by our engineer.
All in favor?
Aye.
With that, the motion passes.
Take 4 off the table.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 4 was filed by both Councilor Murphy Ramboletti and Jenny Rivera. Order that the city install a raised crosswalk or other appropriate alternative on Nick Cosmo Way in front of Boys and Girls Club to ensure pedestrian safety for residents, kids, and staffing accessing the park. I see our president, Councilor Murphy Ramboletti, online. And with us also, we have Jenny Rivera. I saw you unmuted, Councilor Murphy Ramboletti, so it sounds like you might.
May I?
Sure.
I'll just give a brief overview. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was contacted by the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club just with concerns that they regularly use the crosswalk to get from their main building to the playground across the street. And a lot of vehicles are often speeding, and they are not really paying attention to the existing crosswalk as it currently is. There was some confusion around whether or not they have lights there right now. And I confirmed with the executive director that what they have right now is a crosswalk with lights that don't flash continuously. They flash when you hit the button and cross the street. I have been in contact with the city engineer, and I reached out to the police department and the fire department as well to make sure that something like that wouldn't necessarily impede their public safety efforts. I didn't hear back from the police department, but I did hear back from the fire chief, who said it wasn't a concern for them. However, the city engineer and I are still continuing to talk because that street doesn't meet the criteria for an eligible street to have a speed hump or a raised crosswalk. So she mentioned getting a rectangular rapid flashing beacon sign, but that is super expensive. I think she estimated like $45,000. So all of that being said, I'm continuing to have conversations with the engineer, and she was going to follow up with me to figure out if there's any other alternatives that we could do based on the restrictions there. So that's just my update.
Okay, so we have the alternative.
Councilor Bartley.
Yeah, we have the alternative. So the alternative is the exemption provided by Mike. I think he did a great job with it. So we can add this language to the ordinance, and then they can come back and apply. So I've read this 5 times already. I think it's. I mean, can't recommend even one change in it. So, which is unbelievably rare. So Mike, nice job. And then, I mean, I'll let everybody read it over, but this offers an exemption to the ordinance. And once this is ordained by the city council, signed up by the mayor, then under this exemption, the Boys and Girls Club can apply so long as they meet the criteria.
So this is the exemption for the signatures.
If there's
Yeah,
if
yeah.
there's no residential, right?
Right.
Right, if there's no residential. So
Right, because
this-
there's no residential here.
So that's one part of the issue, but I think the other part of the issue is the part where the city engineer says that it doesn't necessarily meet the requirements or the criteria to be able to kind of put a speed hump there, which
Right,
is different
because-
from,
Right, because it's, first of all, the city engineer doesn't make the rules. So if that's something that's required in that area with the participation of as many people as possible, I mean, the city engineer can recommend. So, okay, so that's how that works. But, you know,
Okay.
so we'll do it with a vote. I mean, if the city council president wants to move this on,
Councilor Murphy Ramboletti?
I'm actually, if it's okay with folks, I'd rather just figure out the best solution. If there's other options that we're not thinking of, I just want to make sure that, I recognize that the city engineer doesn't make the rules, but the city engineer does understand traffic engineering more than most of us. So I want to just make sure we're exploring all options, and I'm continuing to communicate with the Boys and Girls Club so that they know, what's going on, and I'm hopeful that we can find a good solution. It could be the raised crosswalk, but I'm actually okay if this gets continued.
So I think we can vote on the ordinance amendment, which is different than, which would allow for them to actually apply. And
I'm sorry, I apologize. I thought you guys were on item 4.
we are on 4.
Which is just,
So yes, Tess, or Councilor Murphy Ramboletti, right?
Yeah.
We are on item 4, but we actually have an ordinance language that allows for them to actually be able to apply for the speed bumps. Now, with regards to the decision or whatnot, that's a whole nother process, right? Like if the engineer comes back and says, we've decided that it doesn't fit the criteria, right? After they apply. Right now, to my understanding, they can't even apply because they don't meet the requirements. So
Got it.
with the amendment, that the ordinance language that we have here, it allows for them to actually go in and apply, and then after that, if they get denied, then it's figuring that stuff out, or even trying to figure that out throughout the process after they apply, if that makes sense, right? All right, Councilor Barley.
yeah, so I'll make the motion that we recommend this ordinance change to the full city council.
Here, a second.
Second.
All in favor?
I'd say aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, I'm
Go
so
ahead.
sorry, I have a question.
Go ahead, Councilor Murphy. Councilor Murphy Ramboletti.
I know, it's a mouthful, I'm sorry. I guess I'm just trying logistically to understand that item. I know you're voting to amend the change, but if you vote to amend it, I don't see it on this agenda, so I'm just, if it gets voted out of committee, then I have to file another order about the crosswalk, is that correct? I just want to make sure.
I think,
No, because this got referred from public safety.
Okay,
well,
okay.
but it's
okay.
saying to install.
Yeah. This is different.
I think I think President Murphy Ramboletti is correct.
I think she is. Yeah, I'm reading it now too. As you read it, yeah, you're correct.
I'm learning what I'm learning.
As I'm reading it, because it's two different things, and I see Attorney Bissonnette is on. If you want to kind of expand on anything too, feel free to do so.
Good evening, everybody. The draft ordinance isn't designed just for the Holyoke Boys and Girls Club. It's designed for all those areas where you cannot readily get 300 residences or neighbors together seeking either a crosswalk or a raised crosswalk. So in this case, the process would be pass the ordinance, Holyoke Boys and Girls Club then files pursuant to the exemption. Then the engineer will weigh in on what's legally possible. on that road service. And that's where I think everybody gets together and discusses what alternatives are feasible. That might be a solution here, and you then have on the book something to deal with other exigent circumstances.
Attorney Bissonnette, shouldn't there be an order asking to make an amendment to the ordinance, though?
Right.
I think that's where the confusion lies here. If there's no order asking to make an amendment to the ordinance, which I like. We this.
Let me just be clear on how much I disagree with certain members of the council about procedure. Because you have this topic before you, and because the document draft was distributed prior to the meeting, council members in discussing the subject matter may then submit a way to deal with that subject matter, which would be an ordinance change.
Okay.
That's how other legislative
Okay.
bodies do it, municipal, state, federal. I leave it to your discretion about whether you want to take it up tonight or some other night.
No, that makes
I
sense.
apologize,
Certainly within your
everyone.
power to
I didn't-
do so.
I didn't understand. I apologize.
So we have a motion on the table, right?
Yeah, I got my hand raised.
Real quick, Councilor Bartley, go ahead, and then we'll go back to Bissonnette so that he can elaborate for Councilor Murphy-Rambo.
So I'm getting the feeling that somebody thinks there's something nefarious going on, or it's implied. I'm glad Mike said it the way he said it. But I could even hear Mike's frustration with this dialogue. We asked for this already. Mike went ahead, was at the meeting, because Mike saw full well that there is not a mechanism by which this entity, due to its location, can even in fact apply. So Mike went ahead and drafted up a beautiful exemption so that this entity and others similarly situated can apply. And just back to my earlier comment, Mr. Chair, I know full well that a city engineer knows more about traffic than I do. But I have every right to say that it's the city council that passes the ordinance. I'm throwing out another option. I'm not saying we're gonna go move this forward. I'm not saying we're gonna jam it down somebody's throat. We've got a constituent here that's a well-known entity. It's reached out to whomever on the city council. They have a concern. We're talking about children here, and now we're going into this rhetoric that oh geez, we didn't file an order, or geez, I'm a city engineer. Hold on.
I think.
Hold on. I got the floor.
You do have the floor.
Okay.
You do have the floor.
Go jump in a fucking lake. I'll tell you what.
Wow.
If you want to keep interrupting me, go.
All I said was one thing.
No, you constantly interrupt me.
How am I
That's the way it works, dude.
Are you okay?
Oh, my okay. Yeah, I'm better now.
All right. So, amazing. Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti, you have the floor.
I am so sorry that I started this. I feel like I let you all ask as many questions as you want about procedure in any given meeting. I did not have any crazy intent. I'm so sorry. You know what? This is why I usually just watch the meetings from the live stream and I
No,
don't
it's okay.
actually zoom in. It's no, it's all right. I'm done. You guys do whatever you want. I will let me know when we're actually going to talk about the crosswalk itself. So I apologize. Attorney Bissonnette, for asking a question on clarity. I literally was just trying to clarify if I was going to need to file another order. So I apologize, and thanks everyone. But all right, I'll see you guys.
Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, I've seen this go one way and another way at different meetings over the years. But we have the motion in front of us. It's been seconded. And if we feel that we requested this and it should move forward in this situation because it's only opening the door for the application to move forward, then we should all vote yes. If we feel otherwise, we should vote no.
So, real
I'll
quick,
be voting yes.
Before we go to the motion, right, because there was a motion made and it was seconded.
Yes.
Just for clarification on procedure, right?
Yes.
I agree with Attorney Bissonnette with regards to if you want to put something forward, we can do that. And me pointing out that we didn't do that for something else is just, again, for me, just following what we are doing here as procedure, because you just kind of came after Señorita Mentaleski with regards to
I would have done it the other way.
with the
but
ordinance.
I'm just saying, it's
and
the
not
will
asking,
of the committee.
Right. I can see where there's confusion and miscommunication and all that, and I apologize to the solicitor's office. I apologize to Councilor Bartley, even though he kind of threw a temper tantrum and took off. And then I apologize to our Madam President, because there's a lot going on right now, and right now we just want to make sure that we make the amendment so that they can apply. So on the motion, the motion is that we're going to vote in the amendment that was put together by Solicitor Bissonnette, which allows for them to be able to apply for this, at least put in an application for speed bumps. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So that passes 4-0, and it'll go to full council, and I'll somehow, some way explain this at the committee hearing.
Can I just make one comment?
Councilor Bacon.
So I still agree with President Murphy Ramboletti relative to the technical process of what we did. However, sometimes making the sausage, as they say, is messy. And if there is a gray area and there is no harm to be had from looking at it one way or the other, then I think we serve the public better by moving it in this case.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to take up item 5
Motion to
and
take up
6 as a package.
Motion to take up item 5 and 6 as a package.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Meg?
Why not 7 also?
Oh, should we do 7 too? 7,
All the rest are
8,
handicap.
9. All right,
the rest
so
of them are handicap.
5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 as a package.
Yep.
So moved.
So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So item 5 was filed by Councilor Givner. Handicap placard application for Margarita Roldan at 150 Linden. Item 6 was filed by Councilor Givner as well. Order that DPW install a handicap sign for Estela Acosta at 171 Beach Street. Item 7 was filed by Anderson Burgos, that DPW install a handicap sign for Rebecca Ganeri at 322 Linden Street. Item 8 was filed by Bartley. The DPW install a handicap sign for Yulitza Diaz Garcia, Congress Ave. And then item 9 was filed by Councilor Ocasio, that DPW install a handicap sign for Hector Torres at 184 Sargent Street.
Usually Jeffrey lets us know if
That's.
the commission recommends.
I got an email from
Oh, cool.
the commissioner's office, and they mentioned about Hector Torres has 2 applications and that they should be combined, but I only see 1 here for Hector Torres.
Mr. Chair, the other one is item 91.
Item 91.
Oh,
Yeah, so the other item was earlier applied for, and the commission needed additional information or something changed and asked for them to reapply with better information. And so the new order is that reapplication, but with this new one being approved, the old one can probably be disposed of, complied with in the same process, since it's the same person at the same address. I did get an email from Leanna Pasielis from the Disabilities Commission letting me know that the 5 on the agenda were approved.
Same person.
Okay. So that the 5 were approved on the agenda.
all of them?
Jeff?
That's correct.
Okay, so we'll be approving all 5, and then the situation with Hector Torres means that on 91 on the agenda, it's somewhat of a duplicate. So when it comes to committee, or when I see it, I leave to withdraw it. Then is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I mean, you could pull it off of the table right now, since it is on the agenda, and just either dispose, leave to withdraw or just comply with it.
All right.
It's the same
So-
name at the same address.
So let's approve all of these, and then we'll do that one after.
Okay, motion to approve the 5 listed handicap placards, signs.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then I'll entertain a motion to
Motion to
leave to withdraw item
take
91.
up off the table item 91.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then motion
So
to,
you just have to read it, I guess,
oh,
just to be precise.
you're not at all. '91, order that the DPW install a handicap sign at 4 Hector Torres at 184 Sergeant Street.
So I'll make a motion that this is complied with.
Complied with, yep. Second. Sure. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, and that passes. There was another order that Counselor Sullivan had want me to take up, but I don't see actually Mr. Rivers here, so we'll wait. It's the one around the building, what's it called? Fines for abandoned vacant buildings.
Oh,
But yeah, but Councilor Sullivan had told me he wouldn't be here, but he would like for it to move forward. But Mr. Rivers is not here to kind of speak on it, so I'll just wait for the next time. Aside from that, we have nothing else unless anyone else wants to bring something up. I'll entertain a
make
motion.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Everyone have a good night.
Thank you. You too.